I wanted to make a quick video here. This is not going to be as long as normal, I promise. But I need to shout out a really awesome resource that Andrew Torba released this week, christiannationalist.com. This sounds maybe a little cheesy, and you might be a little over the whole Christian nationalism debate and that nomenclature at this point, but I actually think that this website that Torba has made is really cool. I was surprised how well he put together a resource that looks good, looks polished, and has really solid information, has a really solid grasp of what the Christian Nationalist Project is all about. So if you have friends who aren't really up to speed on all of the things going on with Christian right-wing politics recently, this would be a really good website to point them to, christiannationalist.com. Christian nationalist, not Christian nationalism, christiannationalist.com. Super easy URL there to remember, and a really good polished website here. Torba is obviously the creator of Gab, and I don't use Gab that much, but I've always respected him for being one of the only kind of outsider, third-party social media options for a long time. There's a lot more of them nowadays with things like Rumble coming back up. But when Gab first came out, he was sort of the first to do it and the first to experience a lot of the censorship from Apple deleting his app off the App Store, Google doing the same thing. I think they went after his web servers and they debanked him so he can't have a bank account and all of the things that they do to try to shut it down, without actually going to the point of arresting you, because technically what you're doing is not illegal. It's just that the powers that be don't like it. They want complete control over the narrative, and Gab was one of the first to really, really fight against that. Back in the early days, 10, 15 years ago, when the censorship was actually a lot heavier than it is now. That kind of peaked when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and we had sort of a renaissance of free speech on the internet. But Torba has my respect for that, and he has my respect for christiannationalist.com. Very good looking website. It has an AI chatbot that you can use to talk to about the ideas. It's got a search bar. It's got a very clean interface here, very easy to read headers and a comprehensive declaration. But it reads better than a declaration. It reads almost like an encyclopedia, like the Wikipedia of Christian nationalism, because there's a ton of links and hyperlinks here that you can go to see different topics. There are foundations, the problem, the vision, immigration in Israel get call-outs because those are such important topics, policy positions, culture and warfare, as well as other resources. A lot of really good stuff here. I wanted to pick a topic just to show you what maybe we could look at here to show you how this website works. Foundations may be a good one. How about ordered loves? This is the biblical case for nationalism. Okay, let's do the biblical case for nationalism. I think my browser here, is messing up a little bit. Here's the ordered loves. Ordo, Amoris, the order of loves. And so you see we've got a nice header, we've got a quick summary here, and then we've got it broken down in a visual way that's very pleasing. And you see this is different than the previous section. So it's a really well done website, really modern website, easy to read, easy to show other people. Nice call out here of Bible verse, Galatians 6:10. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. So Ordo Amoris is the order of loves. What is this topic? It is, if you haven't been introduced already, the Christian idea that we love some things more than other things, right? Some things receive more love from you than other things do. And I know that feels like heresy to the modern world, to modern ears, even to modern Christian ears. We think, love is love. God is love. Aren't we supposed to love our neighbor? We get very confused about the idea of loving some things more than other things. But if I gave you an example, this would not be confusing at all. If I said, do you love your wife more than another woman? Do you love your children more than other children? The answer should be yes. And if you have a hard time even admitting that, then you are really in need of understanding the Ordo Amoris. But hopefully most people listening to my voice today will understand that, yes, of course, you love your wife more than other women. You love your children more than other children. And one of the reasons why we maybe have a hard time with this concept is the abuse that the word love has taken in the modern world. That word love has been twisted and perverted so much that we have a really hard time with saying loving one person more than another person. So maybe if I changed the word and said things like, do you have more of a responsibility to your family than to random people? Should you spend more time with your family than with random people? Then suddenly it starts to make a little bit more sense, right? Well, that's the kind of love we're talking about, right? Because guess what? If you have to say no to a random child to say yes to your child, you are, in a sense, loving your child more than that random child. Let's give an example. There are two crying children. They both need help. One of them is your child. Another one is not your child. As the parent of the child that you are responsible for, you need to go to your child and not to the other child, even though both are in need. Do you see how this is love? If there are two in need and you only have the time and the resources to help one, you should help the one who is closer to you. This is that meme of the heat maps, the concentric circles, closeness and farness. The modern progressive liberal actually cares more about those who are further away from them, whether that be strangers or foreigners or people on the other side of the world or even rocks and trees and non-humans. The modern tendency is to think we should love those more than those close to us. It's almost a form of bigotry or privilege, improper privilege, to be loving those closer to yourself than those farther away. That's the modern universalist heresy. But here in Christian nationalism, part of the word there is a nation, and it's not a accident that this fundamental comes right after the biblical case for nationalism, because to have a nation, we have to understand that we owe an allegiance to our own nation in this case, rather than an allegiance to a global humanity, right? We have a love. We are ordering our love so that even though we love everybody, right? Remember, this doesn't mean we hate those who are not of our nation just simply because they're not of our nation. We love those who are of our nation before we love those who are not of our nation. This is just about the order of preference. It doesn't mean we don't have a preference. We don't love our neighbor, but actually we love our family before we love our neighbor. And we love our neighbor before we love a foreigner on the other side of the world. Why? Because we have a God-given responsibility to those people. They are placed in our life either as our family, our community, or our nation. These people are given to us to love by God. By placing them next to us, they become our neighbor. And this is very important because we must, as Torba, I believe, writes here, we reject the modern heresy of universalism, which demands equal affection for all people everywhere. Equal is the key word here. Modern universalism demands equal affection for all people everywhere. But God has placed us in concentric circles of duty. To bypass the near for the sake of the far is not charity, it is sin. That's the whole point here. The near has a closer tie to you. Therefore, you must love them first. You must not bypass the near for the sake of the far. If you only have a limited amount of resources and time, then you must actually bypass the far for the sake of the near most of the time. If you are taking money that really should go to your family and using it to give to strangers, you are not being a good father and a good leader. This is the core principle of Ordo Amoris that we must learn as we unlearn this modern universalist demand for equal love for all people at all times, which, by the way, is not possible and never actually works out that way. It ends up being a greater love for the far than the near, because there is no such thing as perfect equality. How could you possibly love each person you ever had contact with the equalist amount, like the equal amount? How could you ensure that you had that level of equity with your disposition towards others? That's insane. That's impossible to even imagine. But that's the sort of doctrine that we are being led to believe here in the modern world. And here he's got a cool little hierarchy with God at the top, our highest love, and then family, and then nation, and then neighbor, and then world. So this, you could maybe debate a little bit here within Christian nationalism. I think God and then family are probably, no one's going to debate that, but nation and neighbor, this, I've heard some debate in this order, which one should be number 3, which one should be number 4, and then of course the world after that, number 5. And just a reminder, we don't hate the world, we don't hate humanity. We have a general benevolence toward all mankind, but our specific duties decrease as the distance increases. This is the core concept that we Christian nationalists have had to relearn. St. Augustine mentioned it quite a long time ago. It's common sense, and the only reason we've had to relearn it is because we've been propagandized to believe this modern heresy of universal equity in love. But that's just one example, 15% through this really good website. And I didn't want to make this a long video. It's already over 10 minutes, so I apologize for that. But I wanted to take an example of one of the topics you can find in this really excellent resource to show you how the website works. It's great. I want to give a full endorsement here to Andrew Torba for pulling this off. Really well done. Great stuff here. If you have anybody in your life who is maybe a bit more theoretical, would like to read the theory, like to understand the theory of Christian nationalism, maybe isn't sold on all of this, but has an open mind, a willingness to understand, I think this is a great resource. One of the best I've seen since we started working on this project. So big shout out to you, Torba. Thank you for doing this. May God bless all of our efforts. In Jesus' name, amen.